Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. It's very hot out here in New Mexico, about 100 degrees, dry heat though, so it's solid. And we're back with another edition of the Hardware Podcast, which we're kind of talking about hardware. We're talking about star players in a way with this episode, as big news hit this week with the East West Shrine Bowl. I keep calling it the East West Shrine Game. Shows how much of an old head I am. But I don't know what the importance is in changing it from game to bowl. But anyway, I digress. Before we go off on a rabbit trail, the East West Shrine Bowl moved from venerable, well, not really venerable, but kind of a dump, Tropicana Field out to Las Vegas and Allegiant Stadium for just some big changes to the game. We're here to discuss that today. And joining us again is Scott from Western College Football Talk and a Las Vegas native at the moment, and really just a great guy. He brought us our most views our last time here. So, I mean, we got to bring it back on.
Omar.
Always closing. And joining me always is Jackson. So before we start, gentlemen, you guys have anything to say?
Jackson, I'll let you go ahead first, buddy.
Oh, no, I'm good. I'm excited to get to it. And I think all of us are big fans of all-star games in general, and East-West Shrine Bowl. I'm going to have to correct myself probably a few times today on that. But East-West Shrine Bowl is one of the most historic, if not the most. And yeah, it's a big deal moving it from where it's been out in the Trop out to Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. I'm excited to see what they do with it, but definitely curious about what Scott has to say. So I think Omar, I think you and I are both probably against this move. Both of us are not big fans of either the change of location, but probably more so the timing of it and all that. Scott, I'm guessing you're for it since it's moving to Vegas. Do you have any initial thoughts about a move in from St. Pete over there out west?
I think that there's two factors in play, and this is going to happen with a lot of other things. I think first and foremost, Las Vegas is developing into pretty much the center of the sports universe. People are starting to realize that this is a city that has all of the accommodations, travel, everything that people need in order to get in and out of the city quickly for any sort of event, whether it's sports or otherwise. And with the Allegiant Stadium now, so before Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas was nightclubs, the day clubs, the boxing matches, the MMA stuff. But football never had a place to go. Out at Sam Boyd Stadium, which is actually right down the road from where I live right now, I came out of that tunnel. I started out at UNLV playing football there, and I actually suited up for a couple of games, came out of that tunnel to an empty stadium. We weren't a very good team at the time, so that had a lot to do with it, but mostly it was the fact that it was an absolutely terrible place to watch a football game. I mean, it's an open-air stadium smack dab in the middle of the Mojave Desert. A lot of people seem to overlook the fact that Las Vegas is smack dab in the middle of the Mojave Desert. I mean, I think it's like 110 outside right now, which I'm perfectly okay with. But if you're sitting in an outdoor stadium watching a football game and you tailgated before and you want to tailgate after, it's a miserable experience. So the reason why attendance at UNLV has always been so poor is not necessarily the record, because they've had some good seasons. It's been where you went to watch the game. Sam Boyd Stadium is an absolute terrible place to watch a football game. And I think there's a special place in hell for whoever decided to put it out there without any shade. I mean, you got to be completely out of your mind to put a football stadium, open-air football stadium out in the middle of the Mojave Desert. So now they have this indoor stadium, which this thing is spectacular. It's not the biggest in the world. There are bigger indoor stadiums, but in terms of its amenities, in terms of its features, in terms of the experience you're going to get inside, it's unmatched. It's absolutely unmatched in terms of the experience you're going to have inside Allegiant Stadium. So I think Las Vegas is literally on the cusp of becoming the center of the sports universe. We've got not just the East-West Shrine Bowl, but right after that, you got the All-Pro Bowl. And then right after that, you've got the NFL Draft. The whole issue that Las Vegas kept having to deal with is people's, quite frankly, ignorant views on sports betting. A lot of people seem to think that sports betting is a negative for sports. It's actually a positive. A lot of people think that when sports betting is involved in sports, it actually increases the risk of fixed games. But the actual opposite is true. When games are bet on, more people are watching the games and more people are looking out for the games to be fixed. It actually decreases the risk of games to be fixed. And furthermore, it increases interest in the game. We are just a few years away, literally a few years away, from some guy sitting in literally Cambodia watching a Fresno State San Jose State game because he bet on the game. Can you imagine prior to sports betting, some guy in Cambodia on the internet watching Fresno State and San Jose State? It was never going to happen. Sports betting dramatically expands the audience. And a lot of the people who are betting on sports are just going to be recreational bettors who are only going to bet a couple bucks, and it's not going to turn into a problem for them. It's going to be perfectly fine. Now, with anything out there, anything that's considered technically a vice, there's always going to be some people that can't control their behavior, whether it's alcohol or tobacco or cannabis or whatever it may be. But 99% of the people that are going to be involved in sports betting as recreational bettors, it's just going to be something to enhance the experience, and it's going to increase the audience. So now that we've gotten over, I think that we're finally getting over this terrible stigma that's attached to sports betting that has prevented Las Vegas from having major sporting events. Now I think we're just a year or two away from nationwide legalization of sports betting. I mean, it's legal at the federal level now, and so each one of the states will decide individually. I think it's only a matter of time before it's legal across all the states. And it's not going to be for the revenue. The revenue that the states have generated for sports betting is totally immaterial. If you look at a state's budget, the sports betting revenue doesn't even appear on it. It barely pays for pencils at one department. So they're not legalizing it for the revenue. But what it will do is it'll actually generate revenue in other areas, specifically tourism. People will come to a specific place so they can watch games and bet on sports at the same time, which is what's a lot of the people that come to Las Vegas so they can bet on sports and watch the game simultaneously. Now that other states like Colorado have sports betting, you get people that are traveling to Colorado to enjoy the Colorado experience and also to bet on sports. Same thing's happened in the cannabis industry. Might as well just go ahead and disclose this, that I previously worked doing accounting and finance work in the cannabis industry. I was not a cannabis guy by any stretch of the imagination, never involved in it before I got into the industry. I basically only did accounting and finance stuff. And from my perspective, it was just a business. It was no different than the tobacco companies, the beer companies, the wine companies, whatever else. But in that industry, you had what's called cannatourism. So people were actually traveling to the states where cannabis was legal and turning it into a vacation. So the same thing is happening now with sports betting. People are going to states where sports betting is legal and turning it into a vacation. And so by doing so, they're helping to reduce that stigma and hopefully completely eliminate that stigma. And once that stigma is completely eliminated, Las Vegas is going to start attracting these major sporting events. It's only a matter of time until Las Vegas gets a Super Bowl and until Las Vegas gets a college football national championship. It's literally only a matter of time. The only thing that's been preventing this from happening up to this point is the stigma attached to Las Vegas because of the sports betting and the gambling and everything else. But now that stigma is eroding, now that stigma is almost completely gone. Shoot, the University of Colorado is actually sponsored by a sports betting company. You're going to see sports betting logos on the University of Colorado Buffalo's uniforms. So now that people are getting over this, oh, well, it's gambling and it's bad. No, that's nonsense. If you think about it, sports betting is no different whatsoever than, picking stocks. It's just an analytical exercise. It's just an analytical challenge. And if you want to, you can do so recreationally and just simply have fun. Or you can approach it as a sharp like I do and try to be successful at it in a very disciplined approach. But fortunately, now that sports betting, the stigma is being removed, almost completely gone, now Las Vegas can say, all right, the only thing that was preventing us before from getting these major sporting events was the stigmas attached to sports betting and gaming. Now that's gone. No other city in America can compete with Las Vegas in terms of what they can offer for hotel accommodations, anything that you want in Las Vegas, no matter what your budget is. If you want the really high-end stuff, you got that on the Strip. If you want something that's kind of middle of the road, but still a great experience, you got that in downtown Las Vegas on Fremont Street. If you want something that's in a more of a budget accommodation, something that's in a kind of a lower end tier, you've got that all over town in the off-Strip places that are still perfectly nice places to go, but just simply for a different budget. So every single person that comes to Las Vegas for a major sporting event, whatever their personal interest is in terms of even style of environment, if they want to be in a very themed environment like Treasure Island, they got that. If they want to be in a traditional Las Vegas environment like the Mirage or Bellagio, they got that. If they want something that's more like a college spring break environment, that's down on Fremont Street, which is 15 minutes from where I live, which is fantastic. I just jump on the highway. I'm right up there. I'm hanging out in downtown Las Vegas. It's awesome. I love the place. So that fits me, my personality. And then there's the people that want just a more budget accommodation, and those places are available all throughout the city. So whatever your budget is, whatever your financial means are, whatever your interests are, there's accommodations available for you in Las Vegas. Traveling in and out of Las Vegas, extremely easy. It doesn't get any easier than that. And in terms of food options, entertainment options outside of gambling and sports betting, there's all sorts. You got the day clubs, you got the night clubs, you got the shows, you got the comedy clubs. The entertainment outside of the event itself just never ends in Las Vegas. So now this stigma of sports betting is eroding and almost completely gone. Las Vegas is going to start attracting the major events. And when I say major, I'm talking about the Super Bowl. I'm talking about the College Football National Championship. I would actually expect to see the Olympics in Las Vegas at some point because they've got the space. Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is located, is huge. It's literally like the size of I think it's back from a business trip back east, and I was driving through Rhode Island. I looked it up. Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is at, is actually 6.5 times larger than the state of Rhode Island. That's how big it is. So in terms of open space, the warm weather, the ability to build new facilities, it all exists in Las Vegas. I think Las Vegas is literally starting to become the center of the sports universe. And it's going to be more than just events. I see in the future, people are going to start setting up training facilities all throughout Las Vegas for every sport imaginable. So this is just the beginning. The East-West Shrine Bowl is just the beginning. The All-Pro Bowl is just the beginning. Having the NFL draft here in Las Vegas, which is good. And again, when they do things in Las Vegas, it's an event. It's not just, we played the game or whatever. No, they turned it into a spectacular event. It's an entertainment event. And that's another important aspect about sports that a lot of people are starting to realize is that fans want more than just the game. Me personally, I'm happy with the game. I love the game so much that I can watch a game in it would normally consider a boring environment and still love it to death because I love the game. I love the strategy. I love the tactics. I love thinking about the game itself. But there's a lot of people out there, a lot of casual fans that want an entertainment experience. They want something more than just the game. And when you come to Las Vegas, you're going to get that. If you've ever watched an NHL Knights game, you can see it's more than just a hockey game. It's an event. And they turn it into a Las Vegas event. So that's what's going to happen with all these other sporting events. It's going to have that massive Las Vegas appeal to it. Everybody that comes to Las Vegas, whatever your budget is, whatever your interest is, you can find it here in Las Vegas. There's something for everybody. It's not Joey Jaws, who just America's Greatest Eater, who just won another competition. He could not eat all the food in Las Vegas. There are so many options if you love to eat. If you want to do things outside of the casinos, it never ends. So I think Las Vegas is literally on the cusp of becoming the center of the sports universe, and this is just the start.
Yeah, you know what? You're literally correct about Las Vegas is set to host Super Bowl 58 in 2024. Right now,
they've already got it?
Right, already got it for 20.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
So yeah, they're already, and yeah, the College Football National Championship, I'm sure will follow past shortly. And NFL draft was supposed to be there last year, got canceled with COVID. But it's going right back there after the one stop in Cleveland. So yeah, no, it's I think you're right. I think this is really good for the casual fans of the East-West Shrine game who might not go to the Shrine Bowl.
It was the Shrine game when I started at Stanford Stadium.
Right. Might not go to the Shrine Bowl being in St. Pete. Might go with it being in Vegas, especially if they're on a lower budget, medium budget, something like that. So yeah, that's awesome. One thing that I found curious was an article on the Shrine Bowl being moved on NFL.com. Talked about our goal was to expand the reach and mission of our healthcare system and to hold a world-class sporting event. And this partnership with the NFL and Pro Bowl, we greatly enhances our ongoing mission that's helped more than 1.5 million children since opening.
I hope it's more than
1.5. Right. And it's interesting. We're seeing a partnership of the growing partnership of the NFL and the Shrine Bowl. Do you think in any way the Raiders might be involved with the marketing for this? And how the marketing power of the NFL might be able to better go behind the Shrine Bowl. And that's
an unbelievable. If you could partner with the NFL, that just boosts you up into an entire new stratosphere.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an interesting point, Jackson. I wasn't aware that Shriners initiated this. Because it's truly wonderful what they do for those kids, honestly, for the bowl game and having to meet the players. So the NFL working as in philanthropy, that's nothing new, I guess, really. But it is an interesting thing, like bringing it to Vegas, just a huge site. But I know Scott brought up Stanford Stadium. And that's something, I guess, like if they wanted to change the scenery for this game, why not move it back to Levi Stadium in February on the same date and stuff, where the game had been for over 40 years, and that's just my thing. Like, I mean, I'm a purist. I always give the purist takes on these podcasts. So like, why not bring it back to San Francisco where the game was? I mean, where all the snowbirds back in the 20s would board their trains across the country to see the best players that they read about in the New York Times, So that's one qualm I have about that. And of course, my ballpark football take, it hurts to see it leave the ballpark, even if it was Tropicana, the second worst ballpark in the league to the Coliseum. But I mean, just like watching those games on TV, it just felt like it was like 1995 again, where you had like the Oilers playing the Astrodome, the Seahawks in the Kingdome, and wherever else, playing those baseball domes. And I mean, I'm going to miss it. I'm not sure how many other people are going to miss it, but that's the one qualm I have. Like Vegas just seems like I think Scott's on the hits hammer on the nail or hammer on the head of the nail, whatever. With this point on Vegas being the sports center of the sports universe. But the one thing that I think differentiates the Shrine Bowl from the Senior Bowl, maybe the Hula Bowl and the NFLPA Bowl is a history of the game. And I think they could have taken advantage of that by moving to Levi's or even like Stanford Stadium's not shabby. Like, I don't think the Shrine Bowl is ever going to sell out, really. I mean, the interest in all-star games just isn't the same anymore, especially how you can see star players on TV now. And I mean, with the vast reach of conferences throughout the country, I mean, we won't really see a need for these games to be in huge stadiums, but that's just my take on this.
Something I'm interested to see is they talked about the partnership with Pro Bowl week and enhancing their mission and all that. I'm curious, the Pro Bowl doesn't stay in one place for too long. It's been in Orlando for a little bit, and then they moved it to Vegas recently. I'm curious if the Shrine Bowl is going to move to wherever the Pro Bowl goes next, because I'm guessing that the Pro Bowl is going to be there for the next 3 or 4 years. I don't think it's a permanent change. I think we're going to see it maybe not go back to Orlando, but maybe the SoFi Stadium in LA, something like that. It'll be interesting to see if this partnership becomes so strong in Las Vegas over the next couple of years that they move it again, if the Shrine Bowl will become a kind of a traveling road show like the draft and the Pro Bowl have been. So I'm curious to see that too. But if it works in Vegas, I mean, if this turns out to be like what we think it might be, it might not go away outside of Vegas too. Which so.
Well, that'd be good for me because I went to these games at the old Stanford Stadium where no matter where you sat in that stadium, even if you were in the front row, you were still 100 yards away from the action. The new Stanford Stadium, which I've also been in, is a million times better. So I went to this game even when sitting in the stands at old Stanford Stadium was not a good experience and still had a great experience seeing the game because like you, Omar, I'm kind of a purist as well, but more of a modernist approach in various things. So I understand that things change over time and I adapt with them. So I do also appreciate and enjoy nostalgia, but I consider myself much more of a modernist than a traditionalist, and I'm always looking for ways to make things better. But if they wanted to go back to Stanford Stadium and the new Stanford Stadium as it is now, that would still be a good place to put it. The old Stanford Stadium where I watched it, I probably 3 or 4 times that I saw it there, and I posted on Twitter earlier today that I had an ex-girlfriend, it was a high school girlfriend, whose dad gave me tickets to the game as a Christmas present, and we were all cool until I broke up with his daughter. So, but that was after I saw the game. So, I got a good deal out of it. But I've seen the game a few times down at Stanford Stadium. It was always a good experience for me. One thing that kind of concerns me with these all-star games is the way that athletes are approaching them, because there was so much money in professional sports right now. You see players declining to play in bowl games, for instance, because they don't want to get injured. And I completely understand that. That makes perfect sense. When you're looking at making literally generational wealth, and that's what pro athletes are getting paid. Pro athletes are not just getting good money that's going to make them wealthy in their own lifetime. They're getting paid so much money that if they're smart, they can actually develop generational wealth that nobody in their family is ever going to have to work again if they just simply have a sound financial plan. and most of them are smart enough to hire someone to help them do that. So when you're looking at the possibility of generational wealth, of course you're not going to risk that to play one football game because some fans would really like to see you play that. I mean, that's just anybody in that situation would do the exact same thing. So one of my concerns with these all-star games, whether it's this particular game, the East-West Shrine Bowl or other all-star games, or even the NFL All-Pro game, is that the players don't – it's not that they don't take it seriously. It's that they're holding back significantly because they're more concerned about getting out of the game healthy than playing a good game. Omar, you're talking about traditionalist nostalgia. What about Pete Rose in the All-Star game running over catchers? I mean, what happened to those days? You know, in the MLB All-Star games where those guys were going after it, looking to literally win the game. Nowadays, when you watch All-Star games, whether it's pro or college, you can see that the players are really holding back, and I completely understand why. There's just so much money on the line. I understand they can get the contracts, which will help them out, but the insurance contracts, which will provide some assurance to them. But it's not really going to be as much as they're going to get in their NFL career. So I kind of wonder, that's my only concern about this game or any other all-star games is I'll certainly go and attend it, that's for sure. But I kind of wonder, am I going to see 100% effort out of these players, or are they going to be holding back? Because understandably, they don't want to get injured.
Oh. Yeah, that's a very good point. That guys don't want to get hurt. I do tend to think of, and Omar, correct me if you don't think this as much, but I tend to think of the Shrine Bowl as more the day 3 guys in the draft, or the UDFAs that are trying to get a contract. Seems like I don't see too many. Yeah, especially day 1, but day 2 picks that are going and playing in the Shrine Bowl. You see some of that, which is not to say that there haven't been great. So Tom Brady went to the Shrine Bowl. John Elway, Brett Favre, Gale Sayers, all alumni of the Shrine Bowl. So it's not to say that there aren't great players, but you don't think so. Hopefully, we don't see too many of these guys hold out. Another point that I think might be a benefit to the Shrine Bowl movement here is it's just. I mean, it has a seating capacity of 65,000, right? So this might be a cheap opportunity just to get to go to Allegiant Stadium. As 2,200 TVs, probably more shops than I can count, and a 75,000 square foot video board. Like, fans are going to want to go in and see this might be a cheap and fun opportunity just to get inside, even if their eyes aren't on the game the whole time. So especially if you're a Vegas native that can't afford to go to a Raiders game right away. Like, this might be a fun way to just go that's not an open practice or something like that.
I think that's a good point, Jackson. That last point about like it being a cheaper opportunity to go to Allegiant Stadium. But then again, you look at like schools like USF out in Tampa at the Ray J, always getting kidded by UCF fans how they can't fill the Ray J. Same thing with Temple. No one's really roasting Temple about it. But I mean, no one goes to Temple games. Like that's a cheap opportunity to go see. I mean, as of late, quality football in the American for Temple, but just no one goes. But I mean, that's a good point for sure. And also too, with the East-West Shrine game being like the day 3 guys, I think I prefer the East-West Shrine game to the Senior Bowl. I think for that reason, where you see the hidden gems, because going to the 2020 game, who's running back on the East side, none other than James Robinson turning heads. And then also too, you see like guys as well. I think some of the biggest beneficiaries of those games are either like service academy guys, especially in 2020 when you had Elijah Riley for Army get signed by the Eagles and play in that infamous Week 17 tank game against Washington. And so you have guys like that. There was also Malcolm Perry ran for a 50-yard touchdown in the 2020 game. So I think the service academies benefit and those smaller school guys as well. And just thinking about that, I feel like there is a tier to these all-star games where like the East-West Shrine Bowl kind of recognizes that. I don't know if I feel like they do recognize that they're, I guess, below the Senior Bowl. Like they'll never get like the Kyle Trask, the Mac Jones, and those type of guys, but
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, Justin guys. Herbert, you name it. Exactly. The first round guys, but they have gems on their own too. And same thing, like, and then you go lower in the tier, like the Hula Bowl. I enjoy the Hula Bowl because the Hula Bowl is like truly like a last hurrah. It's kind of like a vintage field. It's like, I'm not going to see a lot of these guys playing pro football. It's like a celebration, I mean, I remember the Hula Bowl this year was like Peyton Ramsey quarterbacking the East. I'm like, you know what, what a way to tie off a great 2020 for that quarterback. I mean, leading Northwestern to New Year's Day bowl game, Big Ten title appearance, and then to seal it off in the Hula Bowl, that's great. You know, I mean, so I feel like the East West Shrine Bowl is definitely more on the feel good line like that. But I mean, I'd be interested to see like if they're partnering with the Pro Bowl for sure. Like I think that's important too because I think Pro Bowl viewership has been at all time lows, and just looking at the highlights of the game, it's like it's kind of like why does it exist? You know, I mean, I love All Star games, but it's like I understand the players not trying hard for it. It's just not fun to watch, honestly.
But what is fun to watch is the dodgeball that happens on like the random Tuesday or Wednesday before. Who doesn't want to see that? Also, it's great for another thing that's great about the East West Shrine Bowl, brings light to a lot of special teamers, right? They may not have seen as much before. Being a Gator fan, I know Tommy Townsend went to the East West Shrine Bowl, now the starting punter for the Chiefs, and probably one of the most, if not the most, coveted UDFAs back in 2020, I guess. So also great for special teamers that you might not see as much just to get on a stage. And kind of turning direction, Scott, I'd be curious on your thoughts about this as well. It's kind of tough being this game is going to be on the Thursday night, which is probably great for viewership. People don't want to, watch a B-level all-star game on a Saturday afternoon. A lot of people probably have better things to do, especially casual fans, not me. But with it being a Thursday night, better for viewership, but it's going to be kind of tough from a scouting perspective of you're going to see these day 3 guys, these lower level guys, and probably a lot of the decision makers are going to be down in Mobile going to the Senior Bowl, where we do see even these top 10 picks play, as opposed to the Senior Bowl and as opposed to the East West Shrine Bowl rather. And I'm curious how you think maybe teams will divvy up their personnel and whatnot to get this, because that's a lot of ground to cover if you've got the practices going on in Mobile and then the game in Vegas.
Well, I think these NFL teams, their scouting operations are so well run, and also by effectively using modern technology, whether it's Zoom video or other forms of video conferencing, or just simply just your basic modern technologies that allow you to communicate with people instantaneously. They can almost be on the sideline at the game. So they're not actually physically present, but if they just simply use modern technology, especially modern communication technologies, it's almost like they're literally there on the sideline. So I don't see it as much of a big deal as it might have been in the past, where it's difficult for someone to communicate across the country or whatever. Now, I mean, I personally have meetings with my staff from Las Vegas back to Connecticut instantaneously all the time. And it's almost like I'm literally in the office with them, even though I'm not actually there. So I don't really see it as much of an issue. I know that there's definitely a value for face-to-face meetings. And I'm often pressured to travel all the way back to Connecticut because of the value of face-to-face meetings. But I have found personally, just in my own business experience, that I have just as good of an experience and get just as valuable of information having a video conference with somebody, or even a phone call or text messaging or whatever it may be, as I would if I was sitting right in front of them. I mean, sure, you kind of get a different sort of a vibe from somebody. You can certainly read their body language, and it's certainly more intimate if you're actually physically present there seeing them. But I think from a simply scouting perspective, I think that all of these scouts are going to be able to get all the information they need, whether they're actually physically present or not, because of all the video technology that they have, all the audio technology they have. And they're going to have competent professionals there on site who are going to have those face-to-face interactions with players. You're going to be able to write reports and notes about those interactions that are going to be able to describe what happened. So I don't really see it as much of it's certainly not perfect. You would certainly like to be there in person, but I think these operations, these scouting operations for these NFL teams are so well run these days that whoever's at the top of the food chain can get as much information from the scouts below them through their reports, through the videos, through the analysis, and just simply having conversations with the scouts after the games as they could if they were actually physically present at the game. So no, it's not perfect. Sure, they would like to be physically present at the game, but I think of scouting professionalism and scouting skill today, I think that information can still be transmitted to them almost as if they were actually there, and they could still make good decisions from that information.
No, that's a great point. If there's anything COVID taught us, it's that we don't have to be there in person to maybe not get the best idea. And you're also seeing, I feel like we're also seeing a trend in the NFL of devaluing these and more valuing tape and stuff like that, as opposed to these in-person combine meetings and all that. So yeah, no, that's a great point. And plus, like, I mean, I guess when you think about it, like if you're making a decision on these young guys, based off of a 1 week as opposed to you have 4 years of tape, probably not the best idea. Probably haven't squeezed as much as you can out of what you could already had with these background school visits and all that as well. So yeah, no, that's a great point that you can meet with these guys over Zoom.
Without a doubt, there's definitely value in the personal conversation. I know from my own business experience where I've had video conferences with people, and then I flew out to wherever they were located and had personal conversations with them. And I felt like I understood them better, just simply physically being present in front of them. I could see their body language. I could kind of read their vibe. It was a different sort of a conversation where you didn't have this sort of artificial barrier between us, that we were literally face to face, and people start being more genuine, I guess you could say. So there without a doubt is a value for the scouts to be physically present at these games and to actually have personal conversations with these players, and so they can get a good sense of the personality of these players and the real genuine character of these players that they may not be able to get if they're watching video or if they're reading reports written by scouts who are trying to basically summarize. It's pretty much hearsay, and direct knowledge obviously is more valuable than hearsay. And they're pretty much reading hearsay when they're reading those reports of a scout's analysis of their conversation with the player or their perspective of the player and how they felt in their own personal interaction with the player. So absolutely 100%, there is certainly value in having a real face-to-face conversation with someone, because you really get to see them and understand them on a personal level. But I think for the most part, with our modern technologies and the way that everybody was able to continue operating businesses and other things throughout COVID, I think that it's only a slight disadvantage, very, very slight disadvantage that ultimately is probably an immaterial disadvantage. It's not really going to make a difference down the road. I think most people can run things, whether it's businesses or sports teams, virtually from a distance. That's just the way it is, especially if they have people that are literally on site who can have those face-to-face conversations and then communicate the results back to them. So what's really a key in these situations, they have to have scouts out there on site that are very good at communicating the results back to the decision maker. So if you have a scout on site who's not good at describing things, who's not good at interpreting people's body language, who's not good at summarizing conversations, who's just simply not a good communicator, period, and they're trying to communicate their experience and observations back to the decision maker, and it's not good communication, and certainly, obviously, there's a breakdown there. But I think most of these scouts have been trained well enough and have enough experience and have been around other people long enough. They understand what to look out for and then how to communicate it ultimately back to the decision maker. So I think the loss that they're going to have in the analysis by not being physically present, I think ultimately is immaterial, that it's really not going to make a difference at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a good point for sure. I mean, like, especially like adapting to COVID. And yeah, just at the end of the day, what you said, Scott, like it comes down to the scouts, like their communication skills and stuff. I mean, that's why they get paid the big bucks and everything. And you'll find that out for sure. I mean, it is going to be hard, I think, with the I guess the proliferation of all-star games that's happening, because I know Jackson and I've talked about the HBCU game that's happening out in New Orleans. You have the Senior Bowl, of course, the East-West game, and I mean a couple more like very small tier all-star games all over the place too. And it's like they got to figure it out somehow. So, something that I'm wondering though, I'm not sure if you looked into this at all, Jackson, but with the NFLPA Bowl All-Star game, the one that that was usually the second part of the doubleheader of the East-West Shrine Bowl on MLK weekend, that one out there in Los Angeles at the Rose Bowl. I'm wondering what's going to happen to that one, since NFL is partnering with the East-West Shrine Bowl. I wonder if that one's going to sort of disappear, because I don't know if there needs to be 2 West Coast All-Star games. So I'm kind of curious for what your guys' take on that one is.
I figure you got to have something on the day before, because with the new 17 game, 18 week NFL season, everything is pushed back a week. So the Super Bowl is going to be that second Sunday in February. I figure you got to have something on that, I guess, last weekend in January, that last Saturday before the conference championships, when this would go on. I would like to see the NFLPA able stay on the Saturday before Championship Sunday, because I figure you got to have something. Like, you've had something every single Saturday, whether it's college or NFL ball, every single weekend since August, pretty much. So I figure you got to have something stay on Saturday. But that's
maybe we're gonna get another one of these new football leagues. They seem to be popping up everywhere.
Right? Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, there's certainly a very, very strong demand for football. And I actually think that we're starting to get to the point where the quality of the product is deteriorating with all of these new leagues popping up, where they're basically kind of thinking, oh, well, we just put something on the field, people will watch it and buy it. That's not necessarily true. So it's important that they maintain the quality of these games, and otherwise they're just going to lose their audience. So, yeah, you want football out there, but it's got to be quality football. Otherwise, no one's going to tune in and watch it.
I think we trust in The Rock more than the XFL. I mean, more than the FCF. That's just
I went to the XFL games in San Francisco when they first started. What are they called? I think they're called the Demons. They had that guy, He Hate Me. They played at Pac-Bell Park, which, by the way, is spectacular. You were talking about people going to Allegiant Stadium just to experience the stadium. Pac-Bell Park, or AT&T Park, or whatever they're calling it now. I think it was originally Pac-Bell Park when they built it. Now it's AT&T, where the Giants play. That place is so spectacular to watch a baseball game. If you sit on the first base side and look out over the bay, back over to Oakland, it's worth the price of admission, even if there's no baseball game being played that day. That place is absolutely spectacular. Now, the parking situation sucks. It's in the public transportation situation sucks as well. So getting in and out of there is a terrible experience. But once you actually get in the stadium, it's spectacular. So there's another one where the stadium itself is an attraction. I think that's going to help the games like the East-West Shrine Bowl. Is Las Vegas itself and Allegiant Stadium itself could be that extra little bit that tips people over into the decision to actually come out and see the game.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. It's very true, especially with Tropicana. Comparing it to Tropicana, just being there, I mean, it's really a drab place, kind of soulless, honestly. And my friend out in St. Pete's, Jerome Lavely, he's gonna hate me for saying this, because we've argued about this plenty of times, where he tells me Tropicana is not the problem, but rather the transport from St. Pete to Tampa, and them not really being Tampa's team. Like, that's the problem. And I think that's just a good point. The surrounding area, where you have Vegas right there, and St. Petersburg isn't a bad city, but if you're going to be called the Tampa Bay Rays, and just, hail yourselves as like being a Tampa Bay venue, I mean, you got to have that area sort of. So again, just nothing but an improvement. The Jets, yeah, the New Jersey Jets, yeah. Let's bring the Jets back to the Mets Stadium. Those days were great days, but yeah, I mean, I totally think this is just gonna help as all.
We got the 49ers playing in Santa Clara.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
50 miles away.
Yeah, it's just, again, we can go on and on about just all these stadiums that are out of place too. I just don't get it with the 49ers, but I digress. That's me and my dad's team. If they're up to us, they'd still be playing a good old Candlestick, even though it was such a dump.
What about Kezar?
Yeah, Kezar. Yeah, jeez, I wish my dad were in here to hear that. No, he loved that. But yeah, again, nothing but a great improvement for the East West Shrine Bowl, and I'm sure we've hit this nail on the head and just beat a dead horse. If Jackson or Scott, you have anything to say?
No, I think I've made the hard sell for Las Vegas. Always closing. Always got to be closing. So if the Mountain West doesn't want to hire me, maybe the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority will hire me. Someone's got to hire me to sell something.
I know that BYU and Notre Dame are in talks. They're in talks right now to have a game in Vegas out in 2022. So maybe you can use your marketing skills there to bring BYU Notre Dame out to Vegas, even though it's going to be weird having of all schools, those two schools in Vegas. It's a weird proposition to me.
Yeah.
The one thing that I is that Andrew Siciliano and Daniel Jeremiah still call, because there's only 2 games a year I get to hear them call. So I hope they still call it, even though they call the Senior Bowl on Saturday. So that would be great. Love that. I always love those.
I mean, I'd have to disagree. Hopefully, the contract somehow gets shifted over to CBS when you get our friend of the podcast, Rich Waltz, calling it.
Hey, I wouldn't mind Rich Waltz at all. That would be great.
So there you have it. I mean, our little discussion about the East West Shrine Bowl out in Las Vegas. You never know with NIL, we might have the day before the game, the night before the game, one of the players performing on the Vegas Strip, a nice musical number. You never know these days with name and
likeness. They're going
to
be hosting nightclub events.
Yeah.
And it's going to be raining money. It's going to be raining money on them. Those day clubs, those nightclubs, they bring in. I have friends and other people that I know that work there. They've told me the kind of money that flows through them, and it'll blow your mind. So if these UNLV players here in town, if they can get any sort of endorsement deals with these day clubs or nightclubs, oh God, they're just going to be raking in the cash.
I forget what NFL analyst it was that tweeted it, but when it was announced that the Pro Bowl would move to Vegas, someone said that someone on Twitter said they better hold the game as soon as the plane lands, because they're not going to be able to play a football game if they wait much longer. So
true. A lot of temptation. You gotta exercise discipline to survive in Las Vegas. That's how I survived. I've been just fine. Never had any problems.
Yeah, a very true statement indeed, and hopefully the players in the East West Shrine Bowl will not make any career-altering decisions in Vegas as the time comes. We'll be excited for the game out on the first Thursday in February, I believe, and should be great. Thanks, Scott, for coming on. Jackson and I are always here and looking to record. Jackson, you have any final words or?
I don't think so. I just can't wait for February. I'm desperate for football enough. Now I can't wait for All-Star football. That's how bad it is. So,
I mean, awesome. CFL season soon. I mean, the men up north. If you're desperate for football, Jackson.
Hey, training camp starts in 11 days now. So gonna be keeping tabs on that for sure.
All right. And I'll be keeping track of the college scene. I mean, all it is just scheduling announcements, but
for like 2034, yeah. All these scheduling gotta end, man. Did you see the tweet? This is one of the rabbit trails we were talking about before recording. Did you see that tweet? It was like time to run it back versus Colorado, because it was some team. It might have been. It wasn't Boston College, was it? I forget who it was. Someone that had beaten Colorado the previous year. Then they were talking about, let's run it back. And like, it was literally 2033 was a scheduling. and these kids are like 10 years old. They're not going to be running it back. That's like, they're in middle school. No.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, you got to find excitement somehow when you're scheduling these games. Like people are like, oh, remember when we beat them back in so-and-so year, that was a good time. I'm sure whatever win that wasn't a watermark win for that program. But exactly. Yeah, as you see, we're going on our rabbit trails again, which I guess it's a good time to hop off and, say see you later for next time. So, from out here in Rio Rancho, at least for me, it's me, Jackson, and Scott. And, thanks for listening. Peace, love, and soul, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Scott.